You're kissing multiple women on the same night. How do you actually focus and get to know who you want to be with when there's 25 people that you're kissing?
Physical chemistry is a big part. I had been single for a while. You know, some people are gonna say you're kissing too many people, but listen, I'm dating, and this is the way that I went about it. I became the Bachelor, and now my family's a unit, and it's all centered around me, and because they're excited.
When did you first learn that your mom had submitted an application? Where were you during that day, and what are you thinking?
I was at my computer training, and she called me in the morning. I talked to my dad and my mom, and they're like, listen, son, like, you never know what's gonna happen. You can find your wife. And I listened, and then it led to this.
The best advice I have for the next Bachelor is?
Best advice I have is be yourself.
Welcome to In Search of Excellence, where I get to meet some of the most incredible, talented, successful, and interesting people in the world.
My guest today is Grant Ellis. Grant is the star of the hit TV show The Bachelor, which airs on ABC at 8 p.m.
Grant, thanks for being here. Welcome to In Search of Excellence.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor, man. I've seen some of the guests you've had. You're doing an amazing job. So
thank you. All right, so we're going to start the show a little different, and I'm going to give you the first impression rose.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm going to keep this in my back pocket for sure.
Okay, there you go.
I appreciate that, man.
So when was the last time you got a rose? It was on The Bachelorette.
It was on The Bachelorette. Yep. And then, you know, I was on there, got some roses, got dumped, and now I'm handing out the roses. So it's a difference, you know.
That's awesome. We're going to go through a lot of lessons in life on the show, but I think one of the most important lessons in our life is taking advantage of the opportunities as they come. So let's go through and tell everyone how we met.
Yeah, so it's crazy. I was staying at the London, and I was walking to the hotel, and I dropped my bag as the hotel was opening, and then you asked me if I needed help, and I was like, oh, I'm okay. And then you asked me, what am I doing? Because I told you I had a stylist. Yeah, and then you were like, well, what do you have a stylist for? And I was like, well, I'm actually the Bachelor on ABC. And then you introduced me to your podcast and your company and what you're doing, and you know, we just hit it off, which was really exciting, and that just goes to show you that, you know, the right opportunity and networking and, you know, being likable is a really big part of business.
Right. One of the things that I teach and coach is you gotta do it now. So you got an opportunity, you're ready. Obviously, I've got a hit podcast. You meet all kinds of interesting people in LA. I was staying at the London Hotel. The fires were raging everywhere. We evacuated, so I was with my family there. I think it was my 7th night there. And I was actually checking out. I mean, all my luggage was in the car. So we're here in my last 10 seconds of the show. I was getting on the elevator, and here's this good-looking, stylish dude, and you know, here we are.
Here we are.
All right, so I always start my show with our family, because our family helps shape who we are and our future. So, start of the show, introduce us to your mom, Renee, your dad, and your sister, Taylor. Yes. But I want to talk about your grandmother, Corinne, yes, who is 83 years old.
Yes, yes.
So how important was she in your life and who you are today? And then talk about what happened after the show aired.
Yeah, so my grandmother was a big part. You know, she's obviously, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her, because she gave birth to my mother. But she also birthed a lot of, she instilled a lot of things in us that were really pivotal in my life. You know, she taught me patience. She taught me how to be kind. She taught me about my faith, you know, and when things get hard to pray. And that's something that she instilled in me. And then after the show, she actually passed away. So it was really big that I was able to give her my first impression rose. And that's going to be something that's imprinted on me forever.
Yeah, that was a great moment of the show and a great way to kick it off. I want to talk about some of your family struggles. Your dad worked a lot. He had drug addiction problems, and you never ate dinner together as a family growing up. So what was that like when you were in a family of parents arguing, and how did that influence your future?
I'm going to tell you one thing. It taught me how to be very focused, and it taught me how to be very ambitious, because the things that I lacked in my childhood, I wanted to make sure that when I grew up, I was able to supply all those things. So when my parents would argue or I'd be frustrated, I would take out my frustration on a craft. Basketball. So every time, you know, I'll get frustrated, I'll go to the park, and it taught me how to deal with adversity through putting your efforts into something that's good for you instead of something that's negative. So it forged me in a way, but there also was some negative effects. You know, I had to go through a period of my life where I isolated myself, because I felt like I had to do that until I could accomplish what I needed to accomplish. So there were some negative effects, but there also was a lot of positive things that came from it. And, I learned a lot from my parents. I learned a lot, both good things and bad things, but we're human, so that's part of it.
You said your mission in life is to be the man your father wasn't.
Right. And the
powerful.
Man, it's powerful. And the man that he is, he taught me where my dad was lacking. He had strength. He was very compassionate, very affectionate, very emotional. His father, and the reason why he got into drugs was because his father passed away when he was 20 years old. And my dad had a very successful business. He sold cars to Biggie Smalls, Eddie Murphy, the Wu-Tang Clan. But being around that lifestyle, he adapted some negative habits. But I tell you one thing, my emotional side and me being in tune with my feelings, I get that from him.
You don't talk about on the show very much kind of what you were like from ages 3 to 13. So kind of fill us in. Were you a cool kid in school? Were you a jock? Popular with the girls?
So from ages 3 to 13, I did band. I
What instrument did you play?
Saxophone and clarinet. And then I did a little bit of plays and things like that. My mom always put me in different things, whether it was Kumon or it was, playing the drums, so that's where I get my musical side from. And I eventually found solace in basketball. So about probably around the age of 8 or 9. And that's where I really developed my love for the game. And that's where I found my ability to take myself away from distractions and focus on that.
When was the first time you had a ball in your hand?
I remember I used to go downstairs and I used to dribble in our basement. This is back then when they had And One mixtape. It was like a street ball kind of thing. And I used to watch that and I used to be so enamored by what the guys were doing on the show. And that I probably around the age of 7 or 8 when I picked it up.
And you played the drums as well?
Played the drums, clarinet, saxophone, a little bit of piano, a little bit of everything. Music theory is something that I love. And yeah, just being all over the place, You
have a kit in your house growing up? A drum kit?
I had a drum kit, and then we had a piano, and I used to play at the church a lot. So just mess around, nothing serious, I
always wanted to play the drums. When I was 35 years old, I walked into Costco, and in college, I bought myself sticks,
right.
And I blast. Rush is my favorite band. Neil Peart, considered before he passed away one of the greatest drummers ever, if not the best. And I'd play on the drums, and you have a beer or two, whatever. You're playing so hard. I remember the wood splintering, just going up in the air as I'm playing the drums. But 35 years old, went in, taught myself how, and my drum set is a little weird. Is in my bedroom.
Right. Okay.
So it's right next to the bed.
That's the way.
We got a 7-piece DW drum set right next to the bed with the big speakers, which is fun. You got to do what you love.
You got to do what you love, and you strike me as somebody who at 35. You push yourself to do new things and challenge your brain and challenge your mind. So that's something that's a big thing I admire.
On your bio for the show, it says that you were a mama's boy.
Yeah.
And you love poetry. So what does it mean to be a mama's boy, and who's your favorite poet?
So to be a mama's boy, it just means my mom is really a source of a lot of my strength. And it just means that I admire her vulnerability and her strength, and the strength that a woman has to push through difficult situations. A lot of times you see women in positions where they really have to rely on their gut and how they feel and their intuition. So I really respect that from my mom. And, you only get one mom. So, obviously, I'm going to have a wife and a family, but I'm always going to take care of my mom. And I'm always going to take care of my dad. That's something that I really look forward to. And, classical poetry, because rap and music is a form of poetry. So one of my favorite artists is Wale. He is a poet, but he puts some music behind his words, and he knows how to rhyme and put certain words in certain places to evoke emotion. So Wale is not a poet, but he's an artist, and I really enjoy listening to him.
You write your own poetry?
I don't write, but sometimes I'll just, sometimes when I'm feeling, I'll write lyrics to a song, or if I'm feeling a certain way, I'll do certain things like that.
We're going to talk about your new song later in the show.
Okay.
But do you have any favorite lyrics at all that you want to recite, or a rap you want to recite right now so
No,
I can see?
I don't.
Come on, you can hit the rap right now.
Okay, the rap. Okay, give me a word. Let me see if I can do something.
Okay, podcast.
Podcast. That's a difficult word. Okay. I'm on a podcast. I'm with Randall Kaplan, and I'm in a podcast. There's some drama on the show with the ladies. I told them to stop that, because at times it gets hard, at times it gets difficult. But in the end, if we win, it's something that we could all admire. I guess that's something. That's some poetry right there. I guess didn't really rhyme, but
Okay. All right. Let's talk about high school education. You went to a Catholic school.
went to a Catholic. I went to a public school at first, and then I went to St. Benedict's, which was an all-boys private school. It was a basketball school. We were actually number 2 in the country in basketball at that time. And then I transferred from there. When the coach left, I transferred to Hudson Catholic, which is a Catholic school.
Grade point average?
So listen, I was not always the best in school. I had like a 2.9. I was not. It was very. It was. I wasn't really. I was always more on the creative side, and I didn't get into finance until I realized how important it was. Yeah, I was always basketball. Basketball is how I'm going to make it, because in the inner city, that's something that we all look up to. But when I realized how much, I was never taught that. When I realized how much finances played a role, I developed a love for it, and that's when I really put my study into that.
And then you went on to 3 or 4 different colleges. Why the various schools?
Basketball is a very political game, and there's certain things that happen. My freshman year, I ended up getting sick. I had to redshirt, and then I came into my sophomore year a little bit behind the 8 ball, and then I transferred to an HBCU, Southern University in Louisiana, and I broke my 5th metatarsal in my foot. So I transferred there, and I finished out my career at Albertus Magnus in Connecticut.
Then you went to the Dominican Republic, and for those people who don't know that it's a basketball mecca, the baseball is the most popular sport in the Dominican Republic, and then it comes basketball, football, which is soccer as well. But the league there is the Liga Nacional de Baloncesto. It's called the LMB, established in 2005. 6 teams in the league. You play 3 months a year.
It's a tournament, so there's different tournaments all throughout the country, and a lot of guys that play in the G League, or a lot of guys that had short stints in the NBA. I had a season there when I was with Josh Shelby. I don't know if he played with LeBron, and there's a couple. It's a really, when you travel the world, we live in America, so all we know is NBA, but basketball is such a global game that there's a lot of talent overseas, and it's very difficult. It's very competitive. And, the difference between professional and college is when you're a professional, these guys are fighting to put food on the table. So it's a lot more cutthroat over there.
So how much money are you making? And tell us about the school buses you're traveling in. It's not like luxury coaches where...
So some of the top teams, which is Metro's, Leones, and the team I was on, they have really good buses, but the bottom teams are the teams with the low budget. So the guys over there that are the top guys, the Americans, they're making anywhere from like $12,000 to $10,000 a month. Rookie contract, I was only making like $2,500 a month when I came out of there. My rookie contract, I had to work my way up, and the most that I made in Dominican Republic was going in my 3rd year. I was making about $8,000 a month over there for the 3 months, and then I would come back home, and then I would go back over to DR and then play another tournament. And then come back home, and then did a short stint in Spain, and then come back home. Spain is more of an 8-month season, so yeah. But there's guys over there that make good money if you're on the top team, the top 3 teams. If you're on the bottom teams, you're kind of fighting to go to a different country or get up to the top teams that are in there.
Spanish is the native language there, so, and I know you speak a little bit. I know you're communicating with some of the women.
Un poquito, a little bit.
Okay, un poquito. Where'd you learn Spanish?
My grandmother taught me a little bit of Spanish, and from being in the country, I know how to speak just certain foods and how to get directions, because you'll get lost over there. And the locals over there, if you don't know Spanish, they'll try to nickel and dime you for, try to get over on you. So you have to learn pretty fast.
You get hurt there. What was the injury?
So I injured my shooting arm. I actually had surgery on this arm because when I went baseline and I dunked and I cut my arm on the backboard. And
So you're up there pretty high if you're cutting your arm on the backboard.
I was up there pretty high. And it was a small cut, and they didn't clean it out properly, and it ended up developing into MRSA, and it went undetected for a while. And if I would have had that for another 2 or 3 weeks, it would have turned into sepsis, and I would have had to get my arm amputated. So that was something that was really traumatic in my life, and that was when I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna relax off basketball for a while, because I had to get a forget what it's called, but it's a medicine tube that they pump in your arm for an hour and a half every day, and I had to get a catheter. I believe that's what it's called. Put over in your arm, and they placed it like around this area over your heart, and it pumped the medicine into your arm to kill the infection.
So you finished playing. You're not getting a $100 million contract in the NBA.
No, far from that.
And you learned day trading. Was Josh Selby day trading? Is that how you learned the craft?
No, so I actually did the research myself. Around that time, there was a big influx of knowledge around trading, and people were getting into the markets around the time of COVID. And my mentor, who I learned from him, I found him on YouTube, and I reached out to him, and he decided to teach me some. His name is ICT, which that's his nickname he goes by, but he's on YouTube, and he was in the market for 30 years. And, he has some very controversial opinions on the market. And, I decided to look into him, and he ended up, teaching me some algorithmic principles that go along with time and price in the market. And yeah, from there, I just studied, and I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
You're trading what's known as S&P futures.
S&P futures, yeah.
What is the S&P, for those people who don't know, and what are futures, for those people who don't know?
Yeah, so the futures market is trading the stock market as a whole. So you'll have the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, and it's different than options because there's no expiration date on your contract. So
go back a step.
Okay.
There's people who have no idea what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
So let me dumb it down a little bit. Let's
okay.
go.
Yeah, so basically day trading and trading the S&Ps, you're trading some of the top companies in the United States as a whole. So the S&P is the backbone to the financial markets. What the S&P does, along with interest rates.
Well, what is the S&P?
The S&P is some of the best 500 companies that are in the United States. So it's a conglomerate of all the best companies in one, which would be sometimes the Apples, and the NASDAQ is under the S&P. They're all in a conglomerate.
Okay, and so when people talk about the market, they're talking about the S&P 500, which again is something that most people don't know.
And there's different ways, like you could trade an individual stock, which would be Apple or Tesla or Amazon, or you could trade the S&P, which would be a conglomerate of all the companies in one.
So you went all in on this for 3 years and lost all your money. How much money did you have, and how much did you lose?
Well, I didn't lose everything, but I was pretty close. I didn't have good risk management, and I was really eager. And, when I started off, I didn't make a whole lot of money coming out. I had about $60,000 saved up from playing. And I decided to put some money into an account and trade that. What I should have done was trade demo, but I was really eager. Trade a demo account, which is not live funds to learn. But I was really eager, and I lost a very, very good amount of my money to where I didn't have any cushion for a while, because I put it all in on trading.
There's a lot out there about day trading, and the stats show that 80 and 90% of all day traders lose their money, go out of business.
Yes, correct.
So when you're looking at what you're up to, was there a better option, and did you understand the risk and say, do I really want to do this?
I think that I definitely understood the risk, but I'm a little bit naive in a sense. I believe in myself a lot. I believe in myself so much that I'll go on a show and never perform and do it, or do something where, that's how much I have self-belief in. And when I was taking my losses, I did get down on myself a lot. It could be depressing, but I always knew that I was going to figure it out and find a way to make it work, because trading, there's a whole bunch of different philosophies, but the main thing is discipline and routine and structure, and doing the same thing every day over a period of time. Small wins, they add up to a large sum over the course of 5-10 years. So I knew that if I could get discipline down and my mental down, that I could accomplish it. And I think that's why most people fail in trading, because they don't have the discipline to withstand the losses that incur.
Did you measure your return, or have you measured your return in each year? Because when we think about money managers and managing our own capital, no one beats the market long term, right? Warren Buffett is the only person who's beat it over 30 years. And if you're not working or seeing someone in Omaha, Nebraska,
right,
and you randomly meet into them, you're not going to find the next one. So
right,
have you measured your returns, and what have the returns been year by year?
So I don't really get into my returns, because I am, over a span of 5 to 10 years, if I could do 5 to 8% annually, I would be really happy with that. And basically not beat the S&P, but just go along with the S&P.
Well, that's way under the S&P. The S&P average over the last 20 years is 10.4%.
10.4%.
And it's tax efficient, so you're now getting hit on the day trading current income.
The taxes, but if you can get access to more capital, the more capital you have, you don't have to have as large of returns. If I have access to $300,000 and I do 10% through the year, that's $30,000. If I have access to $3 million and I do a 10% year, it's a lot more money. So the key is more capital. And then the way you beat taxes is you just allocate in different areas. There's ways to do it, and there's ways to not beat taxes, but to lessen the blow that they take on you.
Are you a Warren Buffett fan?
I am a Warren Buffett fan, but he traded a lot off of fundamentals. And I'm more of a technical guy. I believe in technicals along with fundamentals, but you have to respect anybody that's the best to ever do it. So I have major respect for Warren Buffett.
All right. He said, if you're not willing to hold a stock for 10 years, don't even think about holding it for 10 seconds.
Yeah, but there's things that change. There's things that change ever since, 20, 30 years ago, the market, 40, 50, even 50 years ago, the market is a digital market now. It's electronic, and you could hold the stock for 10 years, or you could read the charts and you could hold the stock for maybe a year, or you could read the charts and you could try to hold the stock or hold the position for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. There's ways to read certain characteristics that the market has and not time it, but be able to ride the wave that order flow brings. So that's something that I really I pride myself on, and I have the stats to back it up. I work with the top proprietary firm in the country, which is Top Step, and I've been with them for about 2 years. And my plan is over 5 to 7 years to have consistent returns, and then bring my portfolio to a manager and say, this is what I've done, and then request more capital. And that's where things get really interesting.
Do you trade in Bitcoin? Do you think it's a good investment? And do you have any predictions on where it's going to be 5 years from now?
I don't touch crypto. I stick strictly with the S&P 500. I think that's the smartest move. I think crypto is a way to make money fast. But when you get in that mentality of making fast money, then you start gambling. So I would much rather have a larger pool of capital and just take small pieces and just build that up over a long. So I don't touch crypto. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you where it's trading at right now.
What's so interesting to me is you think that's gambling, but day trading is not gambling. But if you look at all the pundits, everyone says day trading is gambling.
Humans are interesting. They will ride a wave, or everybody. I think you can't speak on day trading unless you have skin in the game, more than 3 to 5 years. Then you could tell me it's gambling. If you go in there and you try it for 3 months or a year and you lose a bunch of money, you're gonna be like, oh, this is gambling. But if you go in there and you do it over and over again, and you take your lumps and you get back up, you'll see that there's a way to not beat the market, but you could get consistent returns over a long period of time and be financially stable enough, and develop a game plan to where if you could acquire more capital, you could make some really, really good money.
So you've been day trading now 6 or 7 years. What's a professional dream?
To start a hedge fund is probably my number one goal. Like, obviously, the opportunities that come with being a bachelor are great, but I'm not really an influencer. I put so much effort into trading, and so much of my skin and so much of my mental into the game that I'm never going to stop. I want to be the best, and I think that's something that I'll never stop doing. So to start a hedge fund and to be able to, tell former athletes how to invest their money. I think that's something that I really would enjoy.
So a lot of the listeners and viewers to the show have no idea what a hedge fund is. So can you tell everyone what it is and the economics of it and how hedge fund managers make money?
Yeah, so a hedge fund is basically just you're acquiring pools of liquidity or pools of money, and you're telling your investors where to allocate their money. And you'll just charge a commission or a fee for the deal, you know? So if I give you a 10% return on your investment, I will just charge a fee for that. And like I said, the way you make money is in a numbers game. The more money that I have, the more investors I have, the more money that I'll be able to make on the returns that I am able to allocate for each investment.
And tell people how the fee structure 2 and 20 works for the hedge fund manager and how all these hedge fund managers become rich.
Yeah, like I said, it's a numbers game, you know. For me, it would be a numbers game in terms of how I'm going to charge and how I'm going to allocate my different funds. But yeah, that's something that I have in the works now, and yeah, I'm still a good 3 to 4 years off from really structuring that.
The term hedge fund was originally coined because a hedge was a non-correlated class to the market.
Right, to hedge your bet.
Right, so today it's a misnomer.
Yeah.
Because you have all these funds who basically do the same thing as a mutual fund.
Right.
So instead of paying a 2% fee each year and 20% of the profits, you can buy a mutual fund where the average expense ratio, how much it costs to run the fund, is 1%.
Right.
Crazy, but if you can get the 2 and 20 model for doing the same thing as a 1%, you'd rather have the 2 and 20 model.
You'd rather have that, yeah. Well, and I think there's, you know, with hedging, there's so many different ways to do it, and there's so many different models to have. So finding one that you feel best suits you is really important.
I think so much of what we do professionally is our mental state and how we go into it, but we love to read books as well to see how we learn. It's one way to learn. So your favorite book is The Psychology of Money. Talk to us about what you learned from that book, and do you still practice those each day and say, oh gosh, I'm having a shitty trading day, got to go back to the book and got to help it bring me in a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I think the main thing that I learned from that and the psychology aspect was just that trading is not a short-term game. It's a long-term game. And if you could master that concept and stack your wins and master yourself in the psychological aspect, you'll be able to get those returns. So that book was very pivotal in my learning and trading in the markets, because at a certain time I was rushing, I was impatient, I was greedy, and because the market, it plays tricks on your mental. You know, when there's an infinite amount of money in the market and you're telling me if I just hit one trade I could make this much or this much, you get lost. You have to, like I said, you have to take small pieces. So that's where that book helped me and kind of turned the corner for me.
Let's talk about relationships now. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. How old were you when you had your first crush on a girl? What was her name, and did you do anything?
Man, I was pretty young. I watched the movie Love Don't Cost a Thing with Nick Cannon and Christina Milian, and that's when I had my first crush. I don't remember how old I was, but I know I wasn't old enough to drive or have a beer, I'll tell you that much, you know, so I was pretty young.
My first crush, kindergarten, first grade, Jill Blade. I remember, so pretty. I stuttered, so I wasn't the cool kid. And this guy, Todd Fink, who was in our class, could draw all of these battleships.
Okay.
It was great, so I tried to say, okay, well, if I can learn from Todd, who was my best friend back then, I could draw these battleships.
Right.
Maybe Jill will even give me the time of day and she'll talk to me.
Right. Did you learn how to draw the ships?
I mean, I was like a C.
Okay.
You know, Todd's like a A++.
Okay, yeah. That's funny, man.
How old were you when you had your first kiss?
Man, this is gonna sound crazy, but I remember my first kiss was like a playful thing. It was during nap time. It was like honestly in kindergarten, and I gave this girl a kiss on the cheek. I remember we were, you know, because we had nap time. I went to a school called Good Shepherd Christian Academy, and we were having our nap time, and I got up and I remember I gave her like a teddy bear and I kissed her on the cheek, and that was my first kiss that I ever had.
All right, not counting that one.
Not counting that one.
That one doesn't count.
That's what I remember vividly.
Lip to lip kiss. How old were you?
Maybe like 12 or 13, maybe in that range. You know, I don't really remember that far into it. You know, I remember the kindergarten, but I don't remember like my first actual kiss like that.
Are you comfortable sharing first time you were intimate with another woman?
So a lot of my high school career, I focused on basketball. You know, I remember I always Probably like late teens, honestly. Late teens, you know, and then going into college.
Not going to ask you her first name, by the way.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not going to name drop. But and then going into college, I met a wonderful woman, and we ended up getting into a really serious relationship, and that was my first relationship. It ended up being 7 years, and that taught me a lot about what love is, and that is more than just a word, it's an action, and taught me a lot of things about myself that I needed to work on.
You broke up a lot. You know, you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off. I see so many people staying too long in a relationship. Yeah. When's the right point where someone should say, this isn't working, I have an investment in for years and it's time to just move on?
I say there's two factors. A, when you start to lose yourself, when you start to negate your goals and your priorities. And then two, or B would be when you start to, it's good to prioritize somebody, right? But when you start to let go of your interests and lose yourself in that relationship, I think that it's time to leave and find yourself, you know? You have to be able to find the balance of being yourself and letting your partner be themselves and being a union where you guys are both able to have fun, be yourself, but be in love, you know? So, yeah, when you start to lose yourself, I would say.
There's a moment on the second show of The Bachelor this season where all these women are waiting around, they're in the mansion, when this tall, good-looking woman runs in, all the women are like, oh my God, is that the ex-girlfriend?
Yeah, that's my sister, man.
That was your sister, Taylor.
That's my sister, yeah.
She's a model.
She's a model.
And you guys are tight?
Yeah, we're super close, man. It's crazy because we're different, but we're the same in a lot of ways. And I think the one thing that we bond over is our childhood. We both went through the same things together. So we have our differences, but the one thing that we always are locked in over is what we went through and how it forged our personalities into the adults we are today.
One of the reasons why we're here is because we want to promote the show. You want to give your sister a plug, what you're working on, and just give her a shout out.
Kind of, yeah. Shout out to you, sis. I love you. You know, keep doing your thing. She actually just went to Paris Fashion Week, so I hope she brought me back some drip. You know, I would like that.
Okay, there you go. I'm sure right now you can get your own drip.
I can get it.
I really don't think you need your sister for your drip.
I don't. But listen, Paris Fashion Week is a dope weekend.
Are people now sending you free shit? Like, are you getting people just sending it to your publicist or ABC, and everyone's just like, okay, man, I want Grant to wear this. Want to wear it on the show, or?
Well, we filmed the show prior, but people do send stuff, and obviously, it's a business, but I enjoy seeing, what the companies are sending it. Like I said, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying getting free stuff. It's the first time that I've ever have anything sent to me free,
It's cool. Some people have sent me some cool stuff just for my show. They know I love the shoes. I'm into the kicks. Right. Got some pickleball rackets too.
Right.
Selkirk, hula. I've had the #1 player, men and women, on my show too. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's super cool, man.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
So after the 7 years, you dated a woman for 1.5 years, and then you went on the apps.
Yeah.
So what apps were you on, and how did that go?
Yeah, so after the 7.5 year relationship, I was single for a long time because I really put everything into that relationship. And I tried, Hinge, but it just wasn't me, I think that.
Okay, so you're on Hinge.
Hinge is like for people.
You're throwing your picture up there.
Yeah. Hinge is for people that are looking for like relationship. But, a lot of times things don't work out. And then for me, I'm more of like an in-person guy. I want to sit down and have a conversation in person because it's different. So did that for a while, didn't really go on any dates from it. And then, no
dates from the app.
I didn't, I wasn't really into it. I was at a point in my life where I was focusing on career, like life, career, and taking care of my family. And it took me a good year to really get over heartbreak. It took me a long time. And I knew that I wasn't going to get over it by just replacing it with somebody else because I was just going to take bad habits and bring it to the next person. So I really tried to work on myself, and I really dug into my faith, and that's kind of what got me through that. Got me through that time, being alone, because I got lonely. I'll come home alone, and I spend time, with my sister's dog, is Diesel.
What kind of dog?
He's like a miniature Pomchi, kind of like a mix, you know. He's bad though. He's a bad dog. he's a good dog, but he's a little brat. But yeah, my faith really got me through that, and my faith really got me through a lot of hard times in my life with my father's addiction, and with me getting sick and almost losing my arm, and you know, because you could be up 1 minute and then you never know when you're gonna get sick, or you never know when people are gonna turn on you. But the one thing I found out is that I could always pray, and because life is unpredictable, man. Like right now, I'm 31. I'm in shape, you know, I carry myself well, I have my stuff together, but who knows? You know, who knows what's gonna happen, and who knows, you could love somebody with all your heart. That's the main thing I learned from my last relationship. You could think somebody is your world, married, your parents, but so they're gonna let you down at one point. The thing that's never gonna let you down is God. He's never gonna let you down, he's always gonna have your back. Look what just happened with the fires in LA. You know, people work their whole life and they build up these material things which are good, but you can't take those with you when you die. So yeah, I think that's what really made me sit and say, you know what, let me wait and not rush into another relationship, because I'm gonna put my heart in there, and then if I get hurt again, I don't know how many of those I could take. You know, I don't know how many of those I could take before I start to really doubt myself, and I'm a pretty confident guy, you know, so and then I got a call. You know, my mom is always praying for me. She's actually a chaplain. So she I don't know what got into her to sign me up for the Bachelorette, but she signed me up, and here I am today.
Do you go to church on a regular basis?
I don't go to church on a regular basis. I'm not overly religious, you know. I like music, you know. I have drinks here and there. You even see me on the show, you know, I'm kissing and I'm dating, and you know, I know that nobody's perfect. You don't have to go to church every week. You know, you don't have to go to church every week, but the main thing I try to do is I try to read my word, because that's how when I'm confused and I don't know what to do, that's where my foundation comes from. And like I said, you know, nobody's perfect. I think that's one thing that people have to realize, that the way that you get through to people is by, you just love them. You know, you love people, you be there for them, and you don't judge people, because you know, you could be sitting there looking at somebody, oh, this person's doing that and that, but you got your own demons that you're fighting too. So that's what helped me forgive my dad, honestly.
What's your favorite drink? You mentioned you love.
I'm a Hennessy guy. I love a nice Hennessy on the rocks. It's like my go-to drink of choice. So I know I'm getting old, man. I just love Hennessy. I don't know why. So
you mentioned you're confident, and we see that on the show, but you're not cocky either. And I think there's a fine line there. Right. When you were single, were you one of these guys that could just kind of slither up to a woman and ask her out, no problem? Or were you nervous when you just go up to some strange woman?
No, I don't ever get nervous. You know, I know I have that.
Never? When you were younger and you just would walk up to some girl?
No, I don't get nervous. I think that because I was raised around women, I know how to talk to women, and I don't always have to have the intention of I'm gonna try to, you know, and I think that, you know, having the ability to do that but not doing that, it definitely forges character, and it brings character, because you know, when you do that, not to say you're taking advantage, but you're using, you know, something that you have to get what you want, which is not always not the best thing to do. So I try to, you know, I know that I have that ability to do that, but I hold back, because I know one thing I do know is that being in a relationship, for me, it brings stability. It helps me in my life, helps me in my pursuits and my business, and having somebody that's there for you, because you could have a vibe or connection with 50,000 people, but having somebody that's going to stick with you when you're down and out, that's what I want. You know, I don't want to just have meaningless connections.
Our confidence grows as we get older and are more successful. But when I think back to my teens and then college years, we'd have to throw down some brewskis. Right. To have the courage to go up to a woman.
Right.
And I had a pickup line. You know, we're saying, okay, what's a good pickup line? And I determined the best one was, are those your shoes?
Right. Hey, listen, that's a conversation starter.
It's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Are those your shoes? What are you talking about? And it's weird
Right.
But it's funny.
It's funny. Yeah. You never know what's going to work. I don't really have any pickup lines. I never went in there with like a pickup line. I just make conversation. And then you want a drink, like what's your favorite drink? I'll get it for you. Don't worry about it, And that's a conversation starter.
All right. We're leading up to The Bachelor, but it started with The Bachelorette. Mm-hmm. You were on season 21. Right. And how did that come about?
Yeah. My mom signed me up. So
for The Bachelorette as well?
So in order to become The Bachelor, you have to be on The Bachelorette.
Right. So I'm talking about The Bachelorette. How did The Bachelorette come about?
Yeah, my mom signed me up for The Bachelorette.
For that too?
No, I'm saying you don't sign up for The Bachelor. In order to
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
In order to be The Bachelor, you have to first be on The Bachelorette. So my mom saw The Bachelorette, or she saw the first Golden Bachelor, and she signed me up for The Bachelorette, which was the next season.
Right. Yeah, and the Golden Bachelor was last year.
Was Gary, yeah. That was the first season.
72-year-old man, retired.
Retired, yep.
Marriage lasted 3 months.
Yep. It's everybody's relationship is different, Things happen differently, Some people fall off, some people stay strong, and everybody's at different points in their life.
So Jen Tran was The Bachelorette.
Right.
And you were sent home, I think, with 5 people to go.
Right.
You cried.
Yes, I did. I was a little baby right there.
Why do you view that as a baby?
I honestly, I think vulnerability is important, honestly. And, people may look at that and like, you just met this woman. But when you go on there, I just got out of a 7-year relationship. I just spent a whole year and change being single. And then I went on to a dating show where, it's a nationally televised thing. So when that happened, I was a little bit in my feelings, and I'm gonna say I am an emotional guy, but I'm also strong, and I also carry myself with strength and integrity and dignity. But I'm not afraid to, show my feelings, not too much, but when I do, it means something to me. Something that really evokes emotion in me is my relationship with my dad, or my faith. Those are 2 things that really, when I talk about them, I get a little emotional because I know how much that means to me. And I think in that situation, it was just a culmination of everything, and it just happened.
Why are so many men afraid to cry and show their emotions? I've cried on my show many times. I think people here will tell you that. Right. I've had a large number of my guests cry on my show, but it's something that we try to hold in because it's not macho.
I think that a lot of men try to come off as, like strong, and which is good to have strength. I think that I've been around athletes my whole life, and it's very like macho and but I think the bravest thing you could do, I think the most manly thing you could do is, number 1 is sacrifice, and then number 2 to be in touch with your emotions and be able to, I'll cry, but if you disrespect me, I'm going to let you know, and I'm not going to take any disrespect, but I'm also going to be in touch with my feelings, because that gives you empathy. When you have a daughter one day, I bet you're going to cry, I bet you're going to be. So it's like, it's okay to cry, but there's a time and a place for it, and there's a time and a place to be strong. You just have to learn timing.
You ever pull up to a stop sign or a light when you're in your car? You got a fancy car, and we're going to talk about your Ferrari in a minute. So people are looking at your car, they're like, dude, man, I've got a Tesla Plaid. Right. You sit there and you're like, all right, we're going to see who's faster.
All right.
So even if you're not willing to race, you're not even thinking about it, some guy floors it, our competitive instinct kicks in, right?
It's all, man.
You hit it, don't you, right out of the gate?
I'm really careful with my car. I'm really careful. I'm a bit of a, when it comes to that, I'm a bit of a stickler. But I think in terms of like guys being competitive, guys are really, you ever been in a gym and you're benching and somebody tries to bench more than you, or you're on the boxing bag and guys try to they try to measure up. I think that's just in our DNA for whatever reason. It's just part of our nature, and it's healthy, but there's a bit of it that's toxic too.
Yeah, and then when you're on The Bachelorette, right, you're sitting there and you got a bunch of good-looking, great guys there. Isn't the competition, even if you're not in it at this point to find your spouse, you're looking around and, man, like, I just want to win.
That didn't really cross my mind for me. Winning was like, because I didn't look at it like I'm winning. I was just trying to form a connection with somebody. And
yeah, but there is that human element. I mean, you see it on the show, right?
I think the main, where that comes in is night 1. When you meet all the guys and everybody's talking about their jobs and this and that, And yeah, there's a little bit of like chest poking out. But me, I stay quiet. You know, I stay quiet because I think that the strongest men are the ones that are silent. You know, if you ever study martial arts or boxing, it's like you have a guy come into the gym and they try to act all tough, but the guys that are really serious, they don't really talk much because they know what they're capable of. So I stay kind of silent. I don't like, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot of chitter chatter going on, especially night one.
You look at countries like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, India, arranged marriages are the norm. Right. So someone sets you up, your parent, and you're saying you are married. That person, you have no choice. You've never met them, you've never slept with them, you don't know anything about them. Right. Is it the Bachelor and Bachelorette kind of the same thing? Here's 25 people, and they're preordained. You're going to find somebody, and it's going to be one of the 25.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it, but sometimes people hit it off. You know, sometimes you find your person, and I think that it's all about where you're at in your life. If you're really ready for a relationship and you find somebody that you like, you're going to make it work, you know, because there's always going to be more out there. You know, there's always going to be another, if you're a woman, there's always going to be another handsome guy or another guy with more money or another famous guy. If you're a man, there's always going to be a beautiful woman out there. But if you find somebody that you could have a relationship with and be your best friend, that's irreplaceable. So I feel like if you could develop that on the show, it works.
So The Bachelor started in 2002. It's a hit show. We're in season 29 right now. When did you first learn that your mom had submitted an application? Where were you during that day, and what are you thinking?
I was at my computer trading, and she called me in the morning. And at first, because in order to go on the show, you got to freeze your accounts, and then you got to be away from the market for 3 months. And I was in a groove, and I was like, man. But then I talked to my dad and my mom, and they're like, listen, son, like, you never know what's going to happen. You can find your wife, and we see how focused you are. You need to take a break, and you need to do this. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen. And I listened, and then it led to this.
You said two things. You said, I want to find my future wife, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Right. What's the opportunity?
That in itself, finding your partner, but there's also you go on the show to find your person, but it's inevitable that things come from it. There's a whole bunch of things that come from it, but you have to keep your relationship, or you looking for a relationship a priority, because people could sense when you're not genuine. You have to be genuine, you have to be yourself, and you have to be there to look for it, So yeah, I think that's the main opportunity, and then it puts you in a different position. My dad, who was in rehab, he's now working at a sober home in New York that was facilitated through somebody that saw me on the show and reached out, and then things happened, and now he's working in New York City, teaching and speaking for people that with addiction. So those are the things, and it's brought, when my grandmother passed away, my family was divided. I became the Bachelor, and now my family is a unit, and it's all centered around me, and because they're excited, and so people that haven't talked in 3 years are talking to each other now. So those are some of the opportunities that come with it. It's not only monetary, it's also opportunities with relationships and family life and just growing and this journey that we live in life.
But you have to be considering before you're on the show, hey, good things are going to happen to me. Were you thinking about that? And what are some of the good things that are happening to you now that the show is filmed?
Yeah, that's inevitable. I went to the NASDAQ. I watched the company have their IPO.
That's so cool, by the way.
That's what I'm saying.
The bell rings, everyone's going crazy.
Everybody's going crazy. I'm like, I watch this market fluctuate every day. So those are some of the things, I didn't think about that in the future, but when, the press run, when these opportunities or these things are coming, I'm like, wow, this is an opportunity for me to really make connections and, show them that, and gain some respect as a trader. People, I think that a platform to show people, and transparency to show people that it's possible to do this, and to be transparent. And, I think that's a really big opportunity there. So that's something that in itself that I would like to pursue.
Did you want to be famous when you were a kid, and do you want to be famous now?
I think that fame is, a gift and a curse. I think that, people in your business, people always have opinions about you. I think that there's a solace that comes with being kind of private. I was a very private person before this. I mean, my Instagram had one profile picture. So, but I always knew I was talented. I could dance, I could do certain things. And I think it's just good to put it out there, just be yourself, be authentic. And I'm never searching for fame, never will, you know what I'm saying? But I think that influence is a good way to point people in the right direction.
How many interviews did you have to actually be on the show, and who's interviewing you?
You go through, there's a process that you go through to be on the show, to be interviewed. You go through like 3 or 4 interviews.
What level are we talking about? The president of ABC finally getting in there, or someone a little lower down on the...
When you're in the process of going on the Bachelorette, it's some producers and some EPs and things of that. But then there's when you're in the interview to become the lead, there's a hierarchy that you go through. So you meet some really cool people, and they just assess your character, and they assess, because it's one thing to fall in love, but when you're nationally televised, you have to have the ability for people to want to watch you fall in love, or watch your story, or be interested or invested. So I think that's just part of the interviewing process.
These are one-on-one interviews, and how many are there, and what's the length of time that this process is going on?
Some of them are via Zoom, some of them are in person, but I would say about a month.
And do they tell you, all right, you passed the first round, the second round, and now there's 5 and you're a finalist, and are you going home worrying, man, I got to compete with 5 other people?
No. It's very much call, we like you, call, okay, you're going to be on, call, okay, pack your bags, you're leaving in, what I'm saying, you're leaving here, you're leaving in 2 weeks, so it's
2 weeks?
I don't have a specific time period, but that's just, but it's.
No, but how long before you get it do you start the show? Is it 2 weeks? You got to be ready to roll?
Probably about a month,
okay.
Anywhere between 3 weeks, in that range, a month, 3 weeks range.
So who actually called you and said, hey, Grant, you're it?
Sometimes, I have a really close relationship with some of the EPs, and it's the EPs that call.
What kind of preparation is involved for the show? Do you take public speaking? I mean, you're a very articulate, well-spoken person, but there has to be some awkwardness in front of the camera following you around. I mean, you did it on The Bachelorette, but I'm new to the podcast. Well, I'm not new to the podcasting world, but I'm new to holding the camera in front of my face. It's awkward. I feel very silly. Instagram Live, I feel silly. You doing training for the show?
I think that just press from playing basketball, I was able to I know how to speak, but I'll tell you the most awkward thing is when I'm having to document my life. Like, you go in a restaurant, like, oh, me eating my food, or I never was really into that. So that's probably the most awkward thing for me. But in terms of speaking, I don't really struggle with that. I think talking slow is a big thing, or being able to formulate your words. I never really had any training on it.
When you're on the show and they're filming a restaurant scene, I notice sometimes you got the whole place to yourself, but are you walking in with a camera crew to a restaurant or a crowded place and it's awkward, everyone's looking at you, and it's just like hard to just not be embarrassed?
Yeah, that's awkward, but the most awkward part is when you're having a really intimate moment with somebody and you're engaged in a kiss and that it's the camera's there. That's probably the most awkward moment. And then too, on the show, they do such a good job. They want all the important moments to happen and to be seen. So if you're in private, and you're saying all of the things that, they want, the people, the story has to be told. So just having those moments caught on camera, I think that's probably, there's a bit of awkwardness to it, but, somebody got to do it, so.
25 contestants on the show, ages 21 to 31, various professions. You got a venture capitalist, you've got a influencer who brought her llama into the show, which is the weirdest thing ever, but makes for good TV. Do you see the bios of the women on the show before you get there?
No.
Nothing about them?
Nothing, nothing. The first time that you meet the lovely ladies there, it's night one. You meet them night one.
You pull up to a limo, for those people who haven't seen the show.
You hop out the limo, and then you stand there, and then you wait for all the ladies to come in with their entrance, and that's where there's nerves.
They all do some like funky stuff.
Yeah.
Like someone brought you a crystal basketball, and some of this stuff is like, okay, come on.
Right.
But they put a lot of thought into it. What was your favorite one?
I think I'm an animal lover, so I love the llama. I'm happy I didn't get spit on. I'm happy that didn't happen. But I'm an animal lover, man. I love animals. So that was probably one of my most favorite entrances.
And that was the first rose, the first solo date.
Yeah, the first rose, the first solo date. Yep.
When you were single, did you date multiple women at the same time?
Never. I am a one relationship type of guy. Like, I like commitment. I like the stability that comes with that. And it's a lot of, I trade, so I'm already emotionally it's stressful. So it's a high stressful situation when you have to sort things out and deal with different personalities and remember certain things, and it's very difficult.
You're kissing multiple women on the same night, or back to back to back, touching them, hugging them, feeling a little tushy action on a couple of these. I mean, it's hard to do. How do you actually focus and get to know who you want to be with when there's 25 people that you're kissing?
I think that physical chemistry is a big part. I had been single for a while, so I was ready, to really find my person. And I feel like, you could tell a lot about a person. Some people are going to say you're kissing too many people, but listen, I'm dating. I'm dating, and this is the way that I went about it.
It's a lot of kissing, though.
It is a lot of kissing, and to be public. But if you don't have the chemistry with somebody, and you have to make a decision in such a short amount of time. That's one way to figure it out. Okay, is there chemistry there, and then we could build on a friendship and see if it's there.
There's different kinds of kissers. Some you got the chemistry, some you don't have the chemistry. I mean, we're not going to get into who's who. Right. But did you ever kiss one of the women and you're like, yuck?
No, I was never like yuck. I think that all the ladies were really amazing.
They're all good kissers.
They were all good kissers. They were all good kissers. We all had fresh breath. We all were on point.
Taking the.
I was
the mints before your.
Because the night is long. The night is long, and you're drinking, and I'm giving speeches, and I'm talking. So I had some mints. I had some Tic Tacs on deck.
When I was single, I could tell if I was sexually attracted to someone in a millisecond.
Right.
Isn't that the case for you? I mean, you got all these women. I mean, I could tell on the show. You introduced a woman. I saw it, right. And I guessed where we were going to be, and I was like 75% right. Is Grant going to like these girls based on their physical appearance?
Right.
Didn't you know in a millisecond who you'd be interested in?
Yeah, it's interesting because the audience could tell better than I could tell. I was in this place where because I know that there's two ways in a relationship. There's a spark and there's a slow burn. So it's like, you could think that you're not, you could be on a scale of 1 to 10, you could be attracted to somebody maybe like a 6 in the range of not their attractiveness, but how much you're attracted to them. And then you could talk to them and be like, oh, like this person makes me laugh. Or, oh, like this person has their own unique, and then that attraction could grow. So, and then you could be really attracted to somebody off the rip, and then you find out that there's not much depth there. So, or there's not much depth in your relationship. So, yeah, attraction is a spectrum, and it's for me, all the women were beautiful, but there's some that made me laugh more. There's some that, the chemistry was there more, and there's some that the kiss was there more. So it's all up for the moment.
One of the most common questions about the show is, at the end of the show, there's 3 finalists left. You go into the fantasy suite. You're spending a night with these women. Right. So one of the questions is, are you having sex on multiple nights with all 3 women?
Yeah, I try to, I kissed a lot, but I handle myself the way, in fantasy suites, the way that I would want. If I had a daughter, the way I would want her to be treated. So I didn't, I'm not going to divulge anything, but I handle myself with respect, and I treated the woman with respect. So that's the main thing.
I can't imagine. It must be mental torture. You're one of 3 finalists on the show. You know that Grant is going into the fantasy suite, and the worst things are going through your mind. Yeah. That Grant is having sex with this woman and that woman and that woman. That just must be an absolute killer for these women.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is definitely a deal breaker in a relationship, because sex is something that is really important. And if you know that the person you're with is experiencing that with other people, it could ruin the whole relationship. So I definitely tried to keep that in mind, and that was a focal point in how I was thinking. And you try to do this thing to make the relationship, if there is one, to make it last after the show.
So the show stopped filming in October.
Mm-hmm.
and the final is going to be in March. We're not going to tell people the date. ABC is going to make it big thing. Here's the finale. Right. So you got 5 months between the winner, whatever happens. We're not going to spoil that either, what happens. But you're you're probably engaged to the woman, the winner. You got 5 months, but you got to hide out. Are you doing a little sneaky going through the window so you guys can still see each other during these 5 months?
Well, if there is an engagement, there's a way that ABC handles it. You know, they keep us
secret tunnels under the
home? maybe some secret tunnels, maybe some things of that nature, but they keep us happy if there is somebody, you know. And I know through, you know, I've talked to Joey. You know, he told me the process, and Joey Graziadei, the last Bachelor. So he told me, and I really learned through that experience. So, you know, can't divulge if there is one, but I know just to tell you that, you know, I learned through them, and there is a process that we go through.
When we're thinking about relationships and what makes them successful, let's talk about some of those things. Mm-hmm. Do professions matter? And do you want your wife to work full time before and after you have kids?
Yeah.
And the same to you. Yeah. If your wife is the breadwinner, and you want to stay home with the kids, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so this is an area that I'm not that knowledgeable on, because, you know, my whole life I've been like, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, because that's what I had to do. So, but I do know whatever my wife wants to do, she wants to work full time, she can. If she doesn't, we're going to be fine either way. So, whatever makes her happy, I think that's the direction I'm going to go. And yeah, but listen, I haven't supported a family yet, you know. I've been able to help my mom, help my dad, help take care of them, take care of myself. But I know when you have kids, your lifestyle changes, and you have to really plan for that. So I'm not there, and I'm not that knowledgeable in that area, but I would like to say now that I think that I would be able to support, and whatever my wife wants to do. If she wants to work full time, if she doesn't, she's free to do whatever she wants.
When I got married to my amazing wife, Madison, we're beneath the huppah, which is where Jewish people get married. And he said the two most important words in a relationship is, I'm sorry. I
think that you could correlate that to sacrifice. I'm sorry, sacrifice, they're synonymous. They're like basically, you know, in order to, you know, say I'm sorry, even if you feel like you're right, you gotta be like, you know what, maybe, I mean, you know, for the sake of the relationship, maybe I'll apologize. And sometimes when you don't want to sleep in the same room, or you don't want to talk, you gotta sacrifice. One
of the most important aspects of a relationship and a marriage is being on the same page with money. Right. So I've seen it lots of different ways. You know, the man comes with money, or the woman comes in with money. Sometimes the partners will talk to one another, and here's what I have, here's what I have. You want to be on the same page. Some don't. It's secret. What's your view on that? Are you and your future wife going to say, okay, we're going to lay it out money-wise, here's what we have, so you can plan for your future? Or do you plan on saying, hey, this is mine, this is yours, and what we build together, we build together?
Yeah, I think there's there's a world where you have maybe a joint account, and there's a world where you have your own finances. You know, whatever she's making from what she brings in, she keeps that. Whatever I'm making from what I bring in, I keep that. But then I also could allocate, you know, maybe 10% a month or 5% a month we put into a joint account, and that would be for maybe future kids or down payment on a house or something like that. So, like I said, can't lose yourself in a relationship. And I've seen situations where women that I know, they, you know, allow the man to be the breadwinner, and then he decides to get up and leave, and then she doesn't have anything.
Right.
So she has to always think, you know, put yourself first, even though, you know, you have to put your partner, but in terms of your finance, you have to have your own safety net. Never rely on somebody else to take care of you.
1,000,000%. Are you good with money?
Listen, I am a trader. I'm not the best. I have to learn money management in terms of spending. You know, I know how to make money, but 90% of the game is keeping it, you know, and being able to grow it. So I've spent some money, but as I grow older, I think that when I'll be really frugal and plan is when I'm planning to have a family, and I'm planning to, now that I'm stepping into having to, everything in my life I've done up until this point for my mom and dad and myself, really. I've never had to provide for kids or provide for a wife, In my last relationship I provided, but it was like, now that I'm stepping into this area of my life, that's an area that I'm really gonna work on, is planning more in terms of spending.
There are 50 to 100 Ferraris sold in Houston every year. You have a Ferrari F8 Spider,
Yes, sir.
where the retail price on that car is $324,738. Is that responsible?
No, it's not. It's not responsible. It's not responsible. That's what I said. I'm not coming from where I come from and some of the things that I've been through. It's like, as a young black man, when you get some money, you want to be like, I made it, And I think that I learned from that, and I think that's why I don't wear chains like that. I don't wear really expensive pieces. I normally just dress really modest. I might have some fly kicks like you, or have some nice purchases, but yeah, it's not the best purchase, but it's something that I wanted, and it's something that comes from hard work, and I think that I'm happy, so.
When I got divorced many years ago, I had 3 young kids, 6, 6, and 4. We had a minivan. It was black Toyota Sienna. It was scratched and dented, but that was my daily car. Not the coolest car in the world. So I bought myself a 4-door Maserati Quattroporte, which was awesome. That became my daily car when I wasn't with the kids. And a lot of yip yap in the community saying that the nice car was trying to compensate for something I lacked physically.
People are gonna talk, man. That's one thing I'm learning. It doesn't matter what.
We're not gonna. Can we name what that is on the show? Can we call it what it is?
What do you mean?
They call it a small penis car.
Oh yeah. Trying to compensate
for your lack of endowment.
Right. I mean, I don't have any issues in that area, but I will say that people are always going to talk. People are going to talk. Whether you're doing great or you're doing bad, they're going to say something. So I'm sure that you're not trying to compensate. Neither am I.
When you walk around Beverly Hills and you're walking down Rodeo Drive, you got these guys revving the engines in their Lamborghinis and their Ferraris. In Houston, there's Westheimer Road and the Galleria are the kind of the 2 main drags there.
Right.
You go on there and you're revving the engine as you're driving by?
No, honestly, my car that I drive every day is an Acura. Drive an Acura, 2019 TLX. Don't rev my engine, and when I see that, I don't judge. I don't really. I made a purchase because it's a dream of mine. And my dad was an exotic car dealer. Like, I have pictures of my dad where he's with Eddie Murphy and we're inside the shop and he's, selling a car. So I'm like, I just like cars. I'm not a huge car guy, but it's just something that I grew up around it. So I'm not somebody who's going to be revving their engine. If somebody wants to race me, they could race themselves, man.
When I grew up, I didn't have a lot of money, and I go to the Porsche dealership every year. I sit in a Porsche 911. Company goes public, I can afford the car.
Right.
And I waited some time too, because I thought, oh shit, like $107,000 for this Porsche, that's a lot of dough.
Right.
And so a couple things, I remember I got the car, and first day I took it home and I washed the car. And I dropped this big bucket. I thought, okay, it's great. And the bucket was round, and it has still this little round dent on the back of the car.
Right.
And I didn't rev it, but I had a photo shoot. Someone was writing a piece on me about this kid in Detroit who paid it big. And I remember I had the top down, and then the studio was in the worst neighborhood possible, like Compton. And I'm driving through it, and I can't figure out how to put the top up. And all these guys are looking around, and I gotta go inside. The photographer said, "Do not be late."
Do not be late.
And so I had to leave the car outside with the top down, and I just didn't feel safe. It's like stop sign after stop sign. I'm like, oh shit, is my car gonna come out? Listen, and still be there?
I've been in some situations like that, and it's definitely tough when you're going through a rough neighborhood, and what they call that where I'm from, it's like you're an easy lick. Like, they look at you like they could get you, So you gotta be prepared,
The average length of a relationship that someone lives together before they get married is 2.8 years. Thoughts on how long you're gonna live with your fiance before you get married?
That's not the average length of the relationship. That's living together.
That's living together.
Yeah, I think that's
Sorry.
That's right on
Sorry.
point.
That's the average length of dating before
Okay.
they become engaged.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, listen, I'm not Dr. Phil, but I think that that's a good time frame, you know. Some people move faster than others, some people move slower. You know, it's just about how you feel and where you're at in your life. If you're like in your mid-20s, 25, 24, you might take a little long, but if you're in your 30s, you know, you might, if you find a person and things, you know, just depends on where you're at.
I was single for 7.5 years. I had a relationship for 2 of those years, so I had 5 years. It was craziness. You know, you're in LA and I was working a lot, running 3 different companies, and very focused on my kids as well. You know, I'm divorced, home for dinner every night, pick them up from school when I had them 50-50 custody, and it was nutty. And I met my wife, Madison, in New York, and we got engaged 3 months later. And here we are 11.5 years later. She ended up moving from New York and living with us for about 1.5 years. And I just think it's a great thing to do. You have to know your partner big time. 20% of engagements don't result in marriage, and half the marriages in the United States fail. The divorce rate is 50%. Crazy numbers.
Yeah.
Does that scare you?
Never really looked into it with like a pessimistic mindset. You know, I'm usually pretty optimistic on things, and I'm not going to go into it thinking, you know, I'm 50% going to fail. You know, I'm just going to do my best, and if it doesn't work out, then it just wasn't meant to be. So, yeah, that's pretty much that's all I got on that. You know, I'm not scared, but I think that having a solid foundation, aligning on core values, you know, keeping things spicy, keeping things fun, I think that, you know, over the long run, it could be beneficial. So,
you look at the success of The Bachelor on a long-term relationship basis. Over 28 seasons, here are the stats: 22 engagements, several marriages, and only 2 remain married.
right.
You know that going into the show?
I didn't know that going on the show. I know, but look at the stats of how marriage is in America today. So I think it's if you ask me, I think it's a core value issue. You know, people grow apart, which I understand. People grow at different paces, develop different interests, different hobbies. Viewpoints might change, but you know, commitment is past love. So if it's something that, you know, I know on my end, looking at marriage, I definitely want committed, and I think it's rooted in my faith, and I think that like I'm a very committed person. So hopefully, you know, if things go that route or whatever happens at the end of all this, if it is marriage, if it isn't marriage, whatever it is, I think I'm going to stay committed to my purpose.
Do you ever get any pressure from the producers on the show and say, Grant, man, this better work out because it's not going to look good when the show ends if you don't get engaged?
No, because like I said, regardless, you can go on there and be Shakespeare. Somebody's going to tell you that you're not saying the right things. You can go on there and do everything right. It's always going to be opinions, and that's what just happens when you're in the spotlight. So whether it doesn't work out, whether it does work out, you just got to be yourself. Stick to your heart, stick to your gut, be a good person, and let the chips fall where they fall.
Aren't all 25 women on their best behavior when they're sitting there having time with you?
Listen, they may be with you, but you could judge somebody's character by how they interact with other people. So
do you watch them interact with other people? Because when all the cattiness is going on, you're not in the room.
Yeah, but you could be on group dates. You know, there's times when you get to assess the situation and be vigilant. You know, and just check out like what's going on. But I'm not going to say, you know, best behavior is they all want to find a partner and they're there for you. So when they're with you, they're going to try to connect. But you know, if somebody is not getting along with this person, you can start to see, okay, why? And then you see interactions, and then you just kind of assess there, you know?
Do you know what's going on behind the scenes on the show? The backstabbing and all the riffraff going on?
You don't know. You don't know what's going on. You kind of have to, you're in a little dark spot. You're in a little blind spot, and you have to take context clues.
There is competition for the show. All the women want to be the one. And just like in the real world, people are going to basically sometimes shit on someone else to try to make themselves look better. Mm-hmm. And you were on a solo date, and one of the women said, okay, someone told you that you were really into her. I forget the exact words, and she felt very uncomfortable about that. Yeah. And then you confronted Rose, who had said it, and she's just crying all over the place. Busted, but yet you still gave her a rose to move on to the next show.
Yeah, that was something that, you know, because my word is something I try to really stand on, and that's my character. You know, I'm not going to say, first of all, I think that was probably that's a bad move personally and just all around to say that. So that's something I wouldn't do. But I accepted her apology and we had a connection. So even though that dampened it a little bit, I wanted to see if, you know, give that person a second chance. So I think that's why I did that.
But isn't that someone's true character? I mean, that just is not smart. You're on the show, you're taking a massive risk, and how do you know that isn't someone's character in general? Yeah,
it definitely makes you, especially when you're first meeting someone, it definitely makes you question. And then too, you want to allow a little more time for things to unfold. For things to unfold, to see, was that really said? Was that really, you know, did somebody say something different? Was there a mix-up? So, you know, thinking logically, you know, maybe you send that person home the same night, but also, you know, you have to let the story unfold a little more.
When I was dating Madison, we went to Greece after 1 month. And at this point, I'd been single for a long time and just wasn't ready to mess around anymore. I want to get married. I want to have more kids. And she was living in New York. And so there was a woman in LA who was interested in me and I was interested in her. And I asked my buddy, John Terzian, who's going to be on my show tomorrow, by the way, amazing guy, Agewood Group, shout out to John. I said, you know, do you know Madison? And he said, no, but I think I have a friend that did. And so I talked to this girl and she was interested in dating me. She shit all over Madison and gave me all kinds of stuff about these trips she's taken to Vegas, et cetera, et cetera. And so I had a little bit of a damper on it. Right. I mean, I assessed the situation, you know, is she saying it because she wanted to date me or whatever, but on the trip to Greece, I mean, we talked about a lot of things, you know, kids, religion, values. I said, by the way, I said, you know, I heard this from somebody, and she said who, and I had no problem telling her, by the way, right. Because there's no need to beat around the bush. Right. You know, I'm going to tell her who the source is, and she said, I met that girl once. She was in Vegas. She isn't very well liked, and that's the case. I mean, she finally got married, but was single for a very, very long period of time. I think at some point you can't change your stripes.
Yeah, and then if somebody does something that doesn't align with your character, like if that's not something you would do, and somebody's doing it, it's probably not going to work out, you know? So that's a good way to tell.
Yeah, no one's perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes, that's a fact.
You have a bucket list, and one of the bucket lists is you want to travel to as many countries as possible.
Right.
What are the top 5 things on your bucket list in addition to that travel plan?
Start a hedge fund, have a family, in addition to traveling, try all different food groups. I think that's something.
What's one food group that you haven't tried?
I've had a little bit of Indian food, but just the basic butter chicken, garlic naan. I want to try different foods in that category. Spicy, I like spice. I like spicy food. Yeah, those would be like my top 3 things probably.
All right, we're at the end of the show, and I always finish the show with a game I call Fill in the Blank to Excellence. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
The biggest lesson I've learned in my life is?
Biggest lesson I've learned in my life is to forgive.
My number one professional goal is?
My number one professional goal is to start a hedge fund.
My number one personal goal is?
My number one personal goal is to learn how to love better.
My biggest regret is?
My biggest regret, I don't have regrets. I don't have regrets.
My biggest fear is?
My biggest fear is not living up to my potential.
The biggest mistake I've made in my life is?
Biggest mistake I made in my life up until this point was probably where I committed to college, honestly. Probably where I committed to college.
Why do you consider that a mistake?
Because I had a lot of offers and I rushed it. I was young, didn't have the right guidance, and looking back at it as a 31-year-old man, I would have took my time and assessed the situation and made the right decision.
Is education critical to our future success?
I think education is very critical. I think the traditional route of education is changing. But I think furthering your knowledge is critical. You have to learn new things, and you have to always push yourself. But you don't this is maybe a controversial take. School is important, but with the use of the internet and today, you can learn how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a businessman, and how to handle yourself through different people that are online, you know?
The biggest challenge I faced in my life is?
Biggest challenge I faced in my life was learning how to forgive. Learning how to forgive and deal with inner struggles that I had.
The most prideful moment in my life has been?
Most prideful moment in my life was an argument I had with my father, and I said some really mean things because I was hurt, and I forgot that he's the one that gave birth to me, you know? So that I had some pride there.
The craziest thing that's ever happened to me is?
Craziest thing that ever happened to me was becoming a bachelor.
The funniest thing that's ever happened to me is?
Funniest thing that's ever happened to me, I was like 8 years old. I was playing hide and go seek, and I got found out, and the person scared me, and I got scared, and snot came out of my nose in front of everybody. It was just like, it was bad. It was bad.
The best advice I've ever received is?
To go with your heart.
The worst advice I've ever received is?
Don't get into day trading.
10 years from now, I'm going to be doing?
Hopefully I'm with, I have a family, building a life and just enjoying my life.
20 years from now, I'm going to be doing?
Probably getting a knee replacement surgery.
The best advice I have for the next Bachelor is?
Best advice I have is be yourself. Be yourself, and yeah, just always be yourself.
If you could pick one trait that would lead to somebody's success, it is?
Perseverance.
The one thing I've dreamt about doing for a long time but haven't is?
One thing I dreamt about doing for a long time but haven't is travel to every country there is.
If you could go back and give your 21-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Get into trading earlier, 100%.
If you could meet one person in the world, who would it be?
LeBron James.
If you were President Trump, what's the next thing you would do in office tomorrow?
Man, listen, I am not astute in politics. I have no comment on that. No comment.
Controversial.
Controversial. I'm media trained. Okay, I would invest money into people that work in unions, the middle class. I think it's the backbone of our society, and really make sure they're taken care of.
You mentioned media training. How much media training do you have for the show?
There is some media training, but there's some, they prep you on certain things are going to happen, but ultimately when you're on the seat, it's up to you to say whatever you're going to say. So when I say media training, I've been an athlete my whole life, so I've had to do presses, and yeah, so just that's part of what I mean.
You're pro-union?
Yeah, a lot of my friends work in the union. I think that they work hard. I think that they work really hard. I'm not going to say I'm pro-union, but I think that we need that. It's very important.
Do unions have an important place in society today? 100 years ago, 90 years ago, I think there was a great purpose for a union, but a lot of people today say not necessary at all.
I think that a union is very important. You have to have somebody that's looking out for the person that's working hard, somebody that has their back. I think that this may be off topic, but a very important part of leadership is leading from behind, pushing people forward that are that need it. People in the union definitely, they have that, having that support is big.
The one question you wish I'd asked you but didn't is?
How long does it take you to know that somebody's your person?
I think the love of my life is Madison. And I realized after spending, so this is a crazy story. I'll tell you the story. I was on a date with another woman. We're going to Brentwood. She drove to my house first. I wasn't digging the whole feel. I could tell she wanted to get romantic even before we went to dinner. I was just not comfortable. I think as a man or a woman, I think a lot of people love sex. It's the most enjoyable activity in the world for most people. So a lot of people would be like, okay, whatever, let's go. And I just wasn't feeling it, and I didn't like the dinner conversation. So when she got up to go to the bathroom, I had been invited the day before to a place called the Soho House. Yeah. It's a cool club kind of thing, and I'd never been there before. And it was a group of cool guys, and I said, no, I can't do it. Got this date. As much as I want to go, I'm not going to cancel the date. There's a woman that I'd want to take out. She goes to the bathroom. I wasn't digging it. I text my friends, hey, can I come, in a little bit? So the woman comes back to the table, and I get migraines. So I said, I got this terrible headache. I got to go home.
Right.
They're like, oh, we'll drive home. I was driving. Her car was at my house. And she said, okay, I'll take care of you. We got to the house, like, no, I got a migraine, can't have a photon of light in the house. And so I go, well, let me put you to bed. I'm like, no. And she said, you shining me on? I said, no, I really don't feel well. So she left. I waited 15 minutes because I was nervous she hadn't cleared out of the neighborhood.
Right.
I felt like she was not really believing me. So I go to Soho House, and I'm there, and I'm sitting next to this woman. I'm not going to mention her name, and it was cool. She was pretty, and for whatever reason, she started showing me photos of her, and there's full frontal nudity. I'm like, holy shit, this woman's gorgeous. I'm like, and she's got a great personality, whatever. We became friends. And she moved to Los Angeles. She was here kind of part-time. And then I was taking her out on a date. And Madison, my wife, was living in New York. She was modeling. She had 4 jobs when I met her. And then we went to Katsuya right down the street, and she crashed a date at the last minute. They came back to my house and played the drums in the Wii in my bedroom.
Okay.
Till 2 in the morning. The Wii was like in a little room, and then I'm playing the drums, and they're sitting on the bed and they're playing the drum. I'm like, oh, I got these 2 gorgeous women in the bedroom. Right. Nothing happened. And then we kept in touch. And not really in touch, but we were Facebook friends. I got her number. And she posts on Facebook, going to Hawaii with my boyfriend, can't wait, for 2 weeks. And I texted her, is this the engagement trip? And she wrote back, hardly. And I wrote back, oh, you're incredible. You don't have to settle. And I texted her 4 days later. I'd been to the resort a bunch of times. I said, hey, how's the trip going? I said, we broke up. So I said, oh, I'd love to come to New York and take you to dinner. And she said, no, I live with my boyfriend. I got to get my own place. So I basically lied. I'm coming to the Freeze Art Fair this weekend. We love that because she said I'll be in California. She's from Fresno. My sister's getting married. Maybe I can get together this summer. It's like, you got to strike when that iron is hot. Right. It's like, man, 1 second, you miss it, 1 day, you're done.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm coming to New York. We went to dinner twice. And I said to her, it was great. I mean, I'd been single for a long time. I dated all the wrong women. I knew what I wanted. And I thought she was the perfect partner for me. And when I left after 2 nights in New York, I said, I know you're just getting out of something. And I just think there's something here, and I'm going to go back to LA, and I'm not going to date anybody, but you can do what you wanted. Of course, that was fucking bullshit. I didn't want her to do anything, right? And so we ended up seeing each other once. We took the trip to Greece, and at that point I knew. So I think when you know, you know.
Right, when you know, you know. And I think, for me, I know, there's so many beautiful women out there, but it's hard to find character that aligns with yours. So when I see traits in that where I'm like, okay, not only am I attracted to you, but your character stands out.
Yeah.
That's when I know. And listen, my life, I've been through some struggles. So when somebody has my back and I know they're like a rider, they're there for me, I'm like, okay, I'll give you everything. You know what I'm saying at that point. So, you know what I'm saying? Well, not everything. I'm still got my own, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I will sacrifice for you if I know that you have my back. If you're not after me for, obviously you're going to be attracted, and obviously there's, what I could offer and provide. There's a mutual benefit in relationship. But if you love me for who I am on the inside, so that's when I start to fall.
My wife is drop dead gorgeous, and when she walks in the room, people look and they turn their heads. When people tell me your wife is so beautiful, I tell them she's a lot more beautiful on the inside than the outside, and that at the end of the day is way more important, because at the end of the day, looks fade. And it's really what's inside that matters. She also went to business school, graduated college in 3 years, and she loves football.
Right.
So as a football guy, I got the TV on Sunday. There's no complaining. We're just watching football.
That's good, man.
The calendar comes out. The Michigan Wolverines goes into the calendar, and the Detroit Lions go into the calendar. And she knows that's my time. And she'll watch, when she can.
That's so important. And my night one speech was, it was called The Strength of a Woman. Women have so much to offer. When you find the right person, the right person to match you, it's like, it's better than any amount of money that you could have. Obviously you need money, you know what I'm saying? But it is like striking gold. You find somebody that understands you, that compliments you, because a lot of times as men, we think, we're very calculated, and we're very, and a woman come around like have a drink, lighten up, let's have some fun, let's do something that takes your mind off of things, and then they hold you up when you're down, and sometimes we don't think about things that they think about. So it's like a perfect union in the middle. When you find the right person, they build you up. So I'm just excited. I'm excited for how things play out.
I'm so fortunate that I get to meet some of the most successful business people in the world. And I've interviewed 2 coaches in the last 2 months who have coached hundreds of thousands of men over the last 10 or 15 years. And they've said to me, one of the most important traits of a man's success is finding the right partner to support them, be with them, share with them, and grow together. And I agree with them 1,000,000%.
I'm with you on that.
Any other questions that you want to ask me before we finish today?
Man, I just want to give you your flowers, man. I really enjoyed the interview. You're such an intellectual person. You're calculated, you're smart, and I could tell that you care. So that's something that, before I leave here, just want to give you your flowers. And I really enjoyed the interview. I enjoyed getting into finance, trading, talking about love. It was a well-rounded conversation.
Well, I think you're an awesome guy. I'm excited for your future, excited to watch the show. Again, ABC, 8 o'clock. Eastern time, 8 o'clock Pacific time. If you missed the show live, it's on Hulu the next day.
Yes, sir.
One day later. So again, congratulations on all your success. I'm excited for your future.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. I enjoyed it.
Okay, me too.